I think it's really great to just get behind you. You know, you really don't focus on that when there's football games going on. You know, the recruiting part you do, but you know what was going on around us, and you know it's just this time of year it kind of picks up, and you know that. And I think one of the challenges a little bit was, you know, you get sick of hearing that question, and as it plays out in the media. Naturally, if you're 18, 19-year-olds and you're going through the recruiting process and their parents, they begin to have those questions. And I think to be able to put a stamp on stability of this is what we're doing, we are who we say we are, and this is where we're going in this football program, and being able to put some validity to that, I think that was really big. You know, it certainly gave us a lot of momentum with our own players that we do have committed in this class, and I think it's also given us some really good momentum with some of these, you know, 19, 20 recruits that we're trying to continue to, you know, do a great job recruiting. So hopefully I think it's already had a really good effect, and I think it'll continue to have that effect. And you know, I think as we continue to build the program in the right way, you know, I think that'll continue to have positive effect for it as well. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I think this is our profession that we're in is crazy. Like it really is. You know, I'm not a big fan of the craziness that goes on. You know, I'm a big fan of taking, you know, being around our kids and coaching football, and you know, then you know we're a young staff. I'm a big fan of, you know, being around my own family. So that's what's important to me. The craziness that goes on in our profession really isn't. So you know, I think for me the reality of do recruits ask that question? They have, you know, and that's we're young. You know, I get it. Sometimes in the world of young coaches, they think everything's bigger and better. You know, the grass is always greener somewhere else. But when you're having success, I think that's a good thing that people are asking, you know, what's going to happen in terms of recruiting. But, you know, you asked that question after the game, Randy, about, you know, where are you going to be? What are you going to do? Well, you know, everybody's asking that question. And I think until you do it and you put some validity to who you are and what you say you are and actually have consistency to that, you know, I don't think an 18, 19-year-old kid today in recruiting, who do you trust? What do you trust? So I think this was a big step from that aspect of you know, this is what Coach Campbell said, this is what he's going to do, and them, you know, really believing in that's what he was going to do. So, you know, hopefully that aspect of it has played out. But have we heard from a lot of kids, shoot, we did before the game, we did after the game, you know, and I think that's the unfortunate thing sometimes too with social media and the accessibility of social media for these guys. You know, our guys are, you know, our own guys are looking at that stuff. So that's where I think communication and being honest and open is really, really important from my end of it. And I get it, and it's not going to change. And that's where communication's, again, from my end, real important. I think that's the one thing that, you know, one of the big reasons for me to come to Iowa State was Jamie Pollard. And that's really honest. You know, when I had the opportunity to sit down and meet with him, for me, it's about people. And, you know, when you make decisions by putting yourself around great people. And, you know, what I really liked about Jamie is, if you know me, I'm not even interested in talking about this subject. Like, this is a subject that I don't even like to talk about. It's not even interesting to me. I want to win. And all I cared about the last 4 to 5 to 6 weeks of the season is winning football games. And one of the things I really appreciate about Jamie is not talking about this subject, not pushing this subject on, not sitting down to have to talk about it. And, you know, the only thing you'd asked me a week ago is, hey, can we, next Sunday, can we sit down and, you know, would you come over and have a chance to sit down and just talk? You know, that's what I really appreciate. That's why I want to be here. That's why I want to be around people like that really get it, and that let you, you know, your aspirations of all this, that it's great for the media, it's great for everybody, but the reality of it, we have a football team. We're building a culture. We're not even close to being where we need to be yet or where we want to be, but we're doing it relentlessly every day, and him allowing that to occur and not putting this, you know, pushing that on there. So I really appreciate it. You know, the informalness of it or formality of it is, I appreciate him having my wife involved. You know, for me, it's always, you know, a family atmosphere. We love where we're at. We love Iowa State, you know, and so the opportunity to even involves her, I really appreciate that about it from Jamie, and I think it tells you everything about the leadership he provides for this university and, you know, really what he's done here, because it's been remarkable. Yeah, you know, to me, any success we've had here in the first 2 years has really come down to two things. It's come down to a coaching staff that's really been, number one, willing to move their families and to be able to really relentlessly impact and empower their own players, to unify a vision that we really had for Iowa State football. And then number two is the ability, the other piece of it, where I think this facility aspect of it for our own players of, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have great player leadership and player buy-in value. The trust that this senior class, this outgoing senior class, their willingness to stay the course with us, like they didn't have to trust us, they didn't have to buy into what we were bringing to the table. And you could easily said, hey, there's a lot of schools in the country where they don't buy into you and trust into what you're doing. So I think those two things were really great to see, the vision that those things are important too to the university, that how do we better our student athlete experience, how do we continue to provide them the resources to be the best they can be. And these coaching staffs, it's not about the head coach. The head coach is great, whatever, I get up here, it's because I sit up here and talk, but it's those coaches that go day to day in there, and they're the ones that are sacrificing equally as much as anybody else to kind of relay that vision. That was really important to me, and so I just appreciate, the respect and certainly the recognition of that, in this process. Well, I think the thing I've learned is, you're right, that you hear that, and I said that, in the middle of the season, it almost fuels my fire. It's like, I feel like my fire is raging more today than it was 2 years ago when I got here, about where we can take this football program and what we can do here. And, you almost feel like what we did this year, it's a fluke, and so you take that fuel, you add it to your fire, and you just put it in your back pocket and know that, we are just getting started, and it's a gradual growth to build a real program and to sustain it. And I think the reality from my end of it is there's not been one day that I've ever been disappointed that I came to Iowa State. And, that goes to our fan base, that goes to the ability to build this. And there's been some tough days, but there's been some great rewards of it too. And to watch this senior class and what they've been able to do to kind of flip the culture has been really rewarding. But no, I think there's just a lot of fire that rages in me right now about where we can take this program and what can happen with it. And, changing that national narrative, it's gonna take time. We know that. And consistency of success is what changes the narrative. I think it's a really shared vision. Jamie and I have talked a lot about, how do you continue to push the envelope forward? What are the needs in football programs? And, I'm not a guy that believes flashy is better, but I do think needs in how do you keep up with the times, and how do you also enhance the student athlete experience and performance. And so, I think things like, full functioning training table, I think the ability to, a player's lounge, creating an environment for our players. One thing, that I think is really important, you want your players here in the facility as much as you can. And I think that's maybe the biggest change in our culture, as our kids are here all the time. And, to give those kids the ability to, succeed academically here, the ability to, be able to relax here and get out of the fray a little bit. We just don't have those. It's not built into the resources here right now, but I think that's something that, with this new facility we can really enhance the football players' experience and the student athlete experience in a lot of different ways. So those are all things that I think are really positive going forward. That's always a great question. We got really talented coaches. I think they'll always be, sought after. I would hope they would be. But, my job is to create a culture and environment where, our staff wants to be here and wants to continue to build on the vision that, we've started and the foundation we've started. But that's also football, and that's part of our profession. So, I never fault any of our coaches for wanting the opportunity to enhance their careers, but I hope I can also enhance their careers here as well. So, we'll kind of play that by ear, and obviously as the next month goes, we know how crazy this profession is, and we'll just kind of see what plays out. I think David's on the mend. I probably know a lot better. I don't expect him to practice this week, but he's walking around. There is no long-term damage to David Montgomery, which is great. But I'm not going to let him touch the practice field until he's 100% and really ready to go. Kyle, I think, is in a really great situation. Ogie, rehabbing. We got some of those long-term guys that are kind of rehabbing and back at it. There's nobody in the country more excited for Friday's practice than me, because, we need it. You're talking about, we've got so many young guys that didn't play, and, we've got a group of kids that probably played 400 snaps or above. We've got this group of guys that played 200 to 400 snaps in our program, and then we got all these young guys that didn't play a lot of snaps or 0 snaps. And so, 0 through 400 better get ready for Friday, and it's on. So I'm really excited to get going, because this time of year, you talk about development and growth in your program is really, really great. And then once we figure out who we're playing in the bowl game and, get a little bit closer to bowl time, we can start really worrying about some of those guys, getting them back and where we are health-wise. But I would expect us to be at full tilt by the time we, get to that bowl game. The two things for me that the value of bowl practice is, number one, I really like getting to see the football team without your seniors. There's some great value in that, because you're losing every year, you're replacing leadership, and to be able to get some of those practices where those seniors maybe aren't there, or even if they are there, they're maybe not in the drill or the situation. I think it gives you as a coach a really great evaluation tool to say, man, I get this short snippet of this football team before I go into the winter session, and now I've got winter, I've got some winter conditioning, and then I got spring practice. Where do I got to get my group, my position group, by the time I get to spring practice, so I can be competitive, or where we need to be in terms of our program? I think that's really big. So we use a lot of this practice time to do some of that. I think the second thing is then, once you figure out who your bowl opponent is we're going to win the game, right? Like there's teams that are happy to go to a bowl game, and there's teams that are on a mission to go win a bowl game, and then you got to decide, what team are you? What's your theory on that? I can tell you what my theory is, but the kids got to decide what their theory is on it. So, those are kind of the two things that you're trying to kind of get through, and then while you're doing that, still getting those seniors staying in shape and being ready to rock and roll through it. But I think you just got to be wary. We got a lot of guys that played a lot of snaps, and what you don't want to do is run that team into the ground, so by the time you get to the bowl game, they're not interested in playing. I've been a part of that staff too, and that's no fun. And so I think you want your kids to be fresh, and you want them to be ready to play to the best of their ability. Yeah, I think indirectly we at some point, maybe after the Oklahoma game, where you're teaching your team about dealing with success, and noise, and and everything that comes from winning a game like that. In that team meeting, we talked a lot about how you handle success, and how you handle what gets said about players, and ego is the enemy in a lot of ways, and we talked about that, and part of that was people are going to say Coach Campbell's leaving, or he's going to this job or that job. It's just not happening. It's not true. So I brought it up in a staff meeting, but I think that, or in a team meeting, but the reality of it is 18, when it keeps showing up in 18 to 22-year-olds face, again, eventually you got to do something, and you got to be who you say you are in the process.